arts and education, film and visual culture. He's currently a member of the York University Seminar for Advanced Research, whose thematic topic is children and young people in migration context. He also sits on the advisory board of the Art Gallery of York University.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, good afternoon. I'm very pleased to speak last. This has been a very wonderful and gratifying day. In fact, as the culminating event of the Positioned as Desired exhibition. And I do have some rather scattered remarks, and I will be improvising a bit because so many people have said so many interesting things. But I want to focus a bit on something that it seems to me may, in fact, draw our attention to the question of the future, to which many of the speakers today have alluded, and to which I think is the primary point of interest that we have at this point in the afternoon. And well, in this sense, I do want to begin with a quote from elsewhere. That quote from elsewhere is a comment that the writer James Baldwin made some 50 years ago in a discussion of the responsibility of the artist. And I quote from Baldwin, and I won't try to correct the pronoun, the male pronoun in his prose, but I think what's implied here also involves many of the very talented and significant women artists who we've heard from this afternoon, and who certainly will be part of the scene in the future. Baldwin says this: the artist is distinguished from all other responsible actors in society, the politician, legislators, educators, scientists, etc., by the fact that he is his own best test tube, his own laboratory, working according to the very rigorous rules, however unstated these may be, and cannot allow any consideration to supersede his responsibility to reveal all that he can possibly discover concerning the mystery of the human being. Now, Baldwin, of course, in usual fashion, was making seemingly grandiloquent claims in this observation. But what he was trying to underscore was the artist's responsibility to truth, to articulate truths in the plural as seen in his or her own critical terms, shifting and changing truths about herself or himself, and about the society at large. Such responsibility, Baldwin argued, required a measure of maturity. And I really do want to underline this point about maturity, because it really is quite central to what I want to try to say this afternoon. A measure of maturity, certainly because to engage in creative inquiries, demanding truth and honesty, would demand forms of unceasing warring with society, and with assertions of cultural obligation and expectation that would seek to claim primacy over distinct artistic priorities and the imperative of artistic practice. Now, it seems to me in this sense, as Julie Crooks points out in her essay, a lead essay to Positioned as Desired, to the catalog Positioned as Desired, the strength and what I would want to hold on to, the maturity of this important exhibition, is that it showcases artists and art practices and futures of art practice that are invested in the complexities of defining identity, of inquiring into and considering who I am, and more importantly, who am I becoming, in quite distinct and I think provocative kinds of ways. But what this work also does is open up opportunities to consider histories of African Canadian artists and the multiple ways they address vexing questions of Canadian blackness and identity. And what I think is important here for us to consider is that these vexing questions are not just addressed simply as questions of identity and not simply as questions of who am I, but these really are constituted by particular kinds of strategies, particular kinds of approaches, particular kinds of imperatives that belie what one would call contemporary forms of autonomy. And contemporary forms of autonomy that not just are about what artists do, but what they also require of us the viewers, of us the audiences, of us who go to be informed and inspired by these works. Those of us who are critics and writers and educators who want to learn something and work critically with these materials in order to advance certain kinds of ideas. What these works are about are also about a larger set of historical, cultural, and aesthetic specifics that really are part and parcel of how we might begin to imagine futures. So what I want to just put forward in a very particular way is a sense of maturity. And holding on to this sense of maturity, I want to not fetishize what are the difficulties of this undertaking, position as desired, what it means to position oneself as desired within a history of an institution like the ROM that, as many have said already, is already layered with its own histories of difficulty and its own problematic relations to African American art, African Canadian art, and African Canadian art practices. I don't want to fetishize that, but what I really want to try to think about are what are the opportunities afforded by this particular intervention, and a particular intervention that is not without its difficulties. And clearly, all of us who have entered and passed through the gallery can well imagine that this is a temporary exhibition. And in its temporariness, it does not do much to alter the permanence of the idea of Canada that occupies and constitutes the Sigmund Samuel Gallery of Canada in this institution. I mean, what we perhaps ought to be more worried about is not the future of African Canadian contemporary art, but we ought to be more worried about the nature of the narrative of Canada that exists in that gallery, and whether in fact it will ever have the maturity to change. I'm more worried about that. I'm not worried. I'm not so much worried about the future of African Canadian contemporary art, because as we've seen over the past 20 or 30 years, there has been African Canadian contemporary art. And as we have seen in the discussions that we have heard today, Buseji Bailey, Michael Chambers, Stella Fakayeze, Megan Morgan, Dawid Petros, Stacey Terrell, Christina Leslie. These are contemporary artists, and these are artists who have been producing and will continue to produce contemporary art of, I think, the finest kind and of the most cutting-edge kind. These are artists who are not fetishizing what they've done in the past, and they're not fetishizing the past itself, although they certainly remain informed by the historical memory of the past. But they have bigger fish to fry, I think, and they are equipped with the particular kinds of strategies, the kinds of approaches, the kinds of formal understandings of what they want to do that I think will continue to advance a very distinct form of African Canadian contemporary art. This is work, and these are artists who are not just about identity. And I think if we listen very carefully to that last panel, we would have heard that these are artists that are interested in identity. They're interested in their stories, but they are also imbued with certain ideas about the materiality of their practice. They are very interested in the medium, in the media, and they are very interested in solving problems about the media and about the medium. They are interested in how images are constructed and how they are organized and how they constitute a particular kind of vocabulary that not only tells stories but also communicates to others in ways that might generate and be provocative of other kinds of stories.